Hello, everybody. Welcome back for Chapter 1, Computer Forensics, ITSY 2343 30ZM1. We're going to be going over understanding digital forensics profession investigations. So we're going to describe the field of forensics. We're going to explain how to prepare the investigations, summarize the difference between public sector and private sector, explain the importance of maintaining professional conduct, how to prepare forensics investigations by taking a systematic approach, describing procedures for private sector digital investigations, explaining requirements for digital recovery workstations and software, summarizing how to conduct an investigation, including critiquing a case. And that's where we're going to basically take your discussion this week. So we've got a quick tutorial on how to use ProDiscover, video-based, really easy, real simple, real clean. We're going to go over Chapter 1 lecture here in a little bit, but for your discussion, I want to go over first, you've got your post and your reply. You got to do both. You're the digital evidence first responder. After the sweep goes through and they clear the house of potential hazards, you're to go in, and the things you're supposed to do is make your initial assessment about the type of case you're investigating, determine the design and the approach, determine the resources you'll need, obtain a copy of the evidence drive, identify the risks, and mitigate or minimize those risks. That's your discussion. For your reply, you're to critique somebody else's actions on this case. So try and get this done before Thursday to allow people to critique your actions and you to critique others' actions. If you don't, you only end up with half the credit. You should see about 300 words or about 1 page double spaced. Works cited is included in that. Should have no problem with this. Tons of fun can be had with this, so go nuts, go crazy, have lots of fun. You're basically walking up to a Dell Precision 3420. It's not locked, there's no password, so you don't have to do any extra little pieces there. But we are concerned with making sure you hold the right steps. All right, you're going to have your assignment, which goes over the ProDiscover. You got hands-on project 1-1 and hands-on project 1-2. Now, 1-1 is just how to use it with steps and looking at things, and basically you just kind of browse through it a little bit. All right. So for project 1-2, if you are into role playing, you're going to have a ball with this one. So get into role playing, enjoy this. It gets really fun really fast, in my opinion. You're going to need CR project 1 and 2 if you want to get them from the FTP, or not the FTP, but the main Google Share Drive that I shared out with you guys during introduction. That's a great idea to do. You're also going to find the software that you need there too. So inside software, technology pathways, ProDiscover Basic. There you go. ProDiscover 8202 Basic x64 and 802 x86. So 64-bit, 32-bit. There you go. Most of us have 64-bit OSs, so x64 for you guys. All right. After Chapter 1's lecture, discussion, the assignment, don't forget your quiz and your real quiz. So you've got your review quiz and your regular quiz. You've got to make a 70 or better for Chapter 1 before Chapter 1 quiz opens up. It's all automated, so you can do it at any time and go through it at your own leisure. So for that being said, we'll move on to Chapter 1's lecture, Understanding the Digital Forensics Profession and Investigations. We've already gone over the objectives, so we don't need to go over it again. But basically, digital forensics is the application of computer science and investigative procedures for a legal purpose involving the analysis of digital evidence after proper search authority, chain of custody, validation with mathematics, use of validated tools, repeatability, reporting, and possible expert presentation, with the two key features here being search authority and chain of custody. You can do different validation techniques, use different validation tools, repeat it multiple different ways, report it multiple different ways, get several different expert witnesses or expert presentations, and they'll be different every time. But if your search authority and chain of custody differs in any feature or function or fashion that's different from the state mandated or federally mandated required rules, the entire case doesn't have a leg to stand on. So starting there, moving on, even if you screw up validation with mathematics or screw it up with validation tools, if your search authority and chain of custody was right, you can just do it again. All right, so in October 2012, the ISO standard for digital forensics was ratified. That's ISO 27037, Information Technology Security Techniques. Federal Rules of Evidence was created in 1973, and many states have different FREs. Okay, so you got to be careful. FBI's CART formed in 1984 to handle digital evidence. 1990, they teamed up with DCFL. The Fourth Amendment says that your search and secure, you have the right to be secure from search and seizure. It's unlawful search and seizure. Search warrants have to be issued. So if a suspect has a laptop, they toss it over the lawn in their neighbor's yard before the police get there. They don't see that happen. They can't prove that that happened. There's no witness to say that it happened. They can't, even if it says the guy's name on it, they can't go over and lawfully seize that, because the search warrant is probably for the person's residence or what's on the person themselves. So search warrants may or may not be necessary, but you've got to be careful to adhere to that search warrant. If you don't take the search warrant seriously, you've already taken off your search authority part where you can't do it. U.S. jurisdictions have case law related to this and how they can be basically submitted into evidence for court records and everything like that. So you basically want to make sure you collect the data securely, examine the data correctly, present it to the courts, and apply certain laws that digital evidence requires. So data recovery is not digital forensics. All right. Data recovery is like, oops, I accidentally deleted a file, or, oh no, I lost power and I can't get my files back. I got to recover them. Different. Forensics work as a team known as the investigations triad, where network intrusion detection and incident response, digital investigations, and vulnerability threat assessment and risk management is all part of that big pyramid. Vulnerability, threat, risk assessment, it's all part of these pieces here. If you can't make sure that you're taking the right risk management practices, you run the risk of losing your integrity for tests, for evidence, for devices. You could potentially fry something bad, very bad. Intrusion detection and incident response detects when somebody comes in through a network. That's why it's called network intrusion, right? And how they respond to it. Most everything has a log that you can review. Some things have logs that go away. Your home router doesn't, it can, depending on your setting, go from almost no log to very detailed logs. But here's the catch. There's no log backup for that. Once that guy loses power, log is gone. So it's very common practice for intruders to reboot network devices because they typically, some of them, lose those logs that are being actively held. So maybe you want to instigate some sort of practice where logs move away from that device at such and such a time on such and such a day. Getting those regular logs helps that investigation. By the 1990s, the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists introduced training on software. The IRS created search warrant ones. ASR did expert witness for Macintosh. That's presenting court documents or witness, presenting forensic witness or forensics documents to court. iLook, maintained by the IRS. Access Data FTK, that's what we'll be using today or this week. Or is it, no, it's ProDiscover. Access Data is one, ProDiscover is another, EnCase is another. Tons of software out there. We'll go through a couple of different types. Existing laws can't keep up with the rate of change. The change is too fluid. It's happening too much. And Capitol Hill can't keep up. So being familiar with those rules, being familiar of new laws that come in place, basically make a case history or case law that can be used to help you in the future. The Computer Technology Investigators Network, C10, is a great place to go and basically mingle with other computer forensics investigators. So we talk about private sector versus public sector. Private sector is corporation law. Public is criminal law. The public really deals with Fourth Amendment. All right. Private sector has some Fourth Amendment, but have you ever been to a company or a retail company that was allowed to search your purse? They didn't physically reach in and root around, or your backpack, but they just said, open your bag. They look inside. If they ask you to move stuff around, that's you doing it. That's you putting your hand in your own personal property. So that's okay. What's not okay is when they pat you down, when they search your pockets, things like that. They don't do that, do they? That would violate your Fourth Amendment rights. Okay? So what happens when there are these guidelines, right, on the private sector? We all need to know public sector stuff. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act 1986, where state-specific laws develop that. Witness and allegations. Witnesses make allegations or claims to the police. The police interview that complaint. They process the report, goes through a police blotter. And if they choose to make the case, typically someone in management or higher, a detective or so, makes the choice to investigate that claim. Digital evidence first responder, that's going to be you. Digital evidence specialist determines whether or not to call someone in. An affidavit basically means that they're sworn statements that get admitted to court that says this and this and this happened during this crime. Not who did it, not a speculation, but only the facts. Exhibits are case facts, like the bloody glove in the O.J. Simpson case. That was an exhibit. It supported the allegation that he murdered Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman, I think. Public sector or private sector involve private companies. They basically go through policy violations, litigation disputes, like wrongful termination, email harassment, falsification of data, gender, age discrimination, embezzlement, sabotage, industrial espionage. They try to mitigate or minimize that, right, by putting these privacy policies or these policies in place. All right. So most of you guys have seen some sort of acceptable use policy. I know you've seen it here because it's here every time you log in. Next time you come to campus, check it, read it, understand what it's actually making you agree to by signing in, because you do it. You've accepted this use policy, whether or not you know it or not. By hitting that OK button, you did it. Line of authority says who has legal right to initiate an investigation. The warning banner, also known as the acceptable use policy. This guy right here. This is it. Once you hit that OK button, you've agreed to it. Internet service providers do it all the time. You can't download pirated material because you're using our service. By continuing to use our service, you agree to these services. So they get you all the different ways just by you agreeing to use the service and by you using the service. In order for you to see that, you actually have to be using the service anyways. So they get you before they get you. All right, so some quick samples, things you've probably already seen. Unauthorized illegal users will be subject to discipline or prosecution. The authorized requester has the initial power to initiate investigations. And corporate security investigators, ethics office, equal employment opportunity, internal auditing, general counsel, or legal appointment. During the private investigations, you can search for evidence based off the company's rules. All right. If you violate the company's rules, things go a little wacky. All right. So abuse and misuse, computing assets, email abuse, and internet abuse. Notice how they specifically say computing assets, email abuse, internet abuse. They provide you email and internet and a computer. So they only look at those there. All right. One of the big headaches for companies is this new BYOD. All right. Just the same way that a employer can't pat you down, they can't pull your cell phone or your laptop or your notebook or tablet computer open and start looking through it. They violated your Fourth Amendment rights when they do that. But because the company owns the computer, they own the internet, they own the network, anything that passes through those, they have a right to. And there are some shady laws and not laws, but there are some shady rulings on USB thumb drives. If you plug it into a computer, you got to be really, really careful, and you really got to understand your acceptable use policy in your own company for those. Generally, they're not allowed because you can take thousands and thousands and thousands of documents out in your pocket, where you could not do that had you printed it out. Ethics, moral standards, behaviors. An investigator must exhibit the highest level of this at all times to maintain objectivity and credibility. If you can't be credible in your expert witness, you won't be asked to testify again. Also, if you are proven as such to be untrustworthy, you may not have a computer forensics investigator career for very long. Because if you can't be held to the highest of standards, they can't trust your work, and it's possible that convictions can be overturned there. So you have to be very careful with your actions, not just now, but pretty much forever. Staying in touch with the current technology standards, networking tools, forensics tools is crucial to staying relevant today in anything you do. So you investigate, you preserve the evidence, chain of custody routes the evidence through till the court gets closed. Or the court closes the case, I should say. Computer's chain of evidence is digital. Chain of evidence now is digital. So you can easily alter that. So you have to be very moral and ethical and keep that in task as well. Hard disks may be password protected, so you have to maybe change your forensics pathway a little bit, but still maintaining that. So violations of company policy can potentially cost millions of dollars. Serving the internet, emails, personal computers or company computers for personal tasks, or PCs for personal tasks. This is what got me mixed up. If you get a virus or a keylogger or some sort of malware through internet or email on that company computer because you're doing personal tasks, think of it as risk management, all right? Potentials for a loss, big loss. So initial assessment about the case you're investigating, preliminary design, checklist, resources, copy. So minimizing the risk, testing the design, analyzing, recovering, investigating the data, completing the case report. And then, of course, at the end, critiquing the case, making sure you didn't miss anything. Assess the situation, the nature of the case, specifics, type, disk format, location of evidence. You can figure out your case requirements based off those. And you should inquire the evidence, complete the evidence form, establish chain of custody, transport it to a computer forensics lab, and secure it in an approved secure container. So when they talk secure containers, we're talking anti-static bags for static sensitive devices, or if you have a cell phone or some cellular device, you have to make sure that no one can log into it remotely and wipe it out. So Faraday cages are another guy. Faraday cages block all electronic or ESI or electronic signal emissions or ESD, electronic signal devices, from escaping that box. And we should see that coming up in week 3, I believe. No, I'll put that in week 3 about one of the forensics devices you can use. So forensics workstation, retrieving the evidence from the secure container, forensics copy, returning the evidence to secure container, process with the copied evidence with the computer forensics tools. So the original is never manipulated. It stays pristine. So your evidence custody form helps you document what's been done, also known as chain of evidence. Single evidence lists a piece of evidence on a separate page. Multi-evidence looks like this, where there's multiple items. Who touched it? What the number was? Where did it go? Who had it? How long did they have it? Everything is logged. Here's another one. As you can see it go down, single evidence form for one piece. This is the evidence. That's vendor name, model number, serial number, item number. Look here, there's more than one item all the way to 10. And different forms are going to look different for different things. This one here, I think, is just a generic. Evidence bags, anti-static bags, and pads. I didn't mention pads before. Basically, they're big, giant plastic or rubberized pads that don't transfer static and they stop static. And they're typically grounded, actually. Well-padded containers that are also anti-static and basically seal all openings for drive bays, insertion slots, USB cables. They basically are tamper-proof tape. You've seen them on gas stations where they put them on there. If they open, then they basically, they've been shown that they've been tampered with. They do it around the credit card mag stripe readers. So take a look next time you're at the gas station and look at that tape. Also, your PlayStations, your Xboxes, they have it as well. Some PCs have it on the back of the case as well, although that's become a practice that's less and less prevalent. During your initial securing, you write your initials on that tape. And then you'll need to store it in temperature and humidity ranges that are appropriate for that device. If you're unsure, you can always check with the manufacturer, but pretty much humidity is a no-no. High temperatures over 100 degrees is a no-no. Low temperatures under, I'd say, freezing is a no-no. Because condensation forms under that time. And there are other things like dust, humidity, dirt, that kind of stuff you want to minimize as well. So issues important to high-tech investigations, and you need to make sure those formal procedures and checklists are held in place. If an employee is terminated, they basically have abused corporate assets by something like viewing pornography in the workplace, sending inappropriate emails. They have to have policies that say you can't do that before they can technically terminate you. I know Texas is an at-will state, and our reasons for termination or terminating employees can be really flexible, but it's still to minimize that litigation that might happen, because wrongful termination, if you have that policy in place and all employees have agreed to it, then they pretty much don't have a leg to stand on. So investigation about abuse, internet proxy server logs, IP addresses, disk drive, forensics analysis tool. So using an a tool to extract web page URL information, cookies, anything they visited, network administrators that can give you the logs on that IP address and what they accessed, the data recovered from the forensics analysis and proxy server log, analyzing the computer disk drive, and basically getting your full picture. Email abuse is a little different because electronic copies are stored. Email headers are stored. Email server logs are stored. Sometimes not locally to that PC, but always locally to the server. Now, where that server is can be different. If it was a criminal procedure and the email server log is in Malaysia, they have to go and issue a Malaysian subpoena to get those records. Not a United States subpoena, through a Malaysian system. So things can be really different depending on where that server physically exists. And since data gets transferred through different countries from Malaysia to the United States, different laws can apply to those as well. Most email servers store a copy on the server, and they all have different headers in there as well. All right, but you can get the computer access locally. In some cases, can be solved through that. If that person's deleted messages, there's a chance that that's held. After so many days, some of that gets scrubbed and some of it gets overwritten, so it can be challenging as well. Standard forensics techniques still apply. Obtaining the electronic copies before making changes make an exact copy of that one, a bit-by-bit copy, so that you alter that one. FTK uses internet keyword search to extract all email address related information, and header and all of that can be examined without real fear of altering that data. So long as you have the copy of the email, looking at that header doesn't change it. Looking at the metadata on some files may change it if you're not careful. Opening an email doesn't change that header information. Sending that email does. Replying to it does. ACP, or attorney-client privilege, keeps findings confidential. They like to have those printouts so that they can basically keep things in line. But because electronic records are prevalent now, they need to basically get with those times. All right. Memorandum helps you figure out how to start the request of keywords, initiate the investigation, use two bitstream images using different tools for each image. So you're making bitstream images, bit-by-bit copy, comparing hash signatures on all files and recreated disks. Steps for conducting the attorney-client privilege. Examine, and run your searches. For OSs, research and analyze, extract your data from your registry. So if you have a CAD drawing, obviously you can inspect the binary file, but you might want the correct software product to actually view and check things out on that one. Data recovery, for unallocateds, you're going to need to use different tools for different reasons. And you'll actually do a research project on this, figure out what's the difference between Access Data FTK or any other, like Incase or any other product that may be out on the market. All right. Written communications should be minimized because you can electronically document everything. The paralegal and attorney for analyzing data. Staff is basically needing somebody that's familiar with forensics examinations. Network specialist is familiar with network tools. Technology specialists can be overall. Threat assessment specialists, somebody can understand the different threats for legal reasons. That's why typically an attorney fits that guideline. Investigations possible in industrial espionage, corporate attorneys, upper management, substantiate that allegation, generate that list of keywords, and sniff them out. Once you collect everything, you're looking on working plans for whatever investigation you're doing. Internet news groups, message boards, surveillance, faculty, or facility, not faculty, facility logs, somebody that can basically build your case. Placing surveillance at key locations can help prove that so-and-so accesses an area they're either not supposed to, or that they do access an area when they are supposed to. It's important to keep that in place. All right, so reviewing those investigation scope with management and corporate attorneys help review and fine-tune that. So interrogations and interviews, right? Interviewing an interrogator typically isn't something you just turn on, right? You got to be able to figure out how to collect that information from a witness and interrogate and basically getting the suspect to confess. They always try and make them sweat it out, you know? What answers should you be asking and what answers should you be expecting? Help guide the questions you should be asking. So, ingredients for a successful interview: being patient throughout the session, repeating or rephrasing so that you can try and make them trip up. Be tenacious. Don't give up. All right, so investigations, workstations, and software. That's how we're going to look at it. PCs, Macs, there's different ways you can do this, But basically, we want to see the first and foremost piece of this that you should take away. If you don't take away anything else, take away this right now. Write blocking copies. If you can't do this, you should not be a forensics examiner. I'm sorry. If you basically make a copy, you've already altered that. If you do a write blocking, you can copy it without altering it. If you alter the evidence, you pretty much don't deserve to continue to make evidence or examine evidence or expose evidence. You shouldn't make evidence, if you know what I mean. All right. The operating system isn't particularly important in this particular case. It's more the tools that you use. So XP or later, XP is not even supported by Microsoft. And I think I get why they say XP or later. If you use anything older like ME 98, 95, you are running the risk of exposing yourself to the defense or prosecution saying that the evidence is not credible because it was put on an insecure machine. Basically, it was vulnerable to 100 million viruses because it hasn't been updated in forever. So I would say instead of XP, change that to 7 in your mind. Okay, so write blocker devices, digital forensics actualization tool, analysis tools, a target drive, someplace to send all this data, spare parallel ATA or serial ATA ports, USB ports, workstation digital forensics, like a NIC card, USB ports, FireEye 400, 800, SCSI, disk editors, text editors, graphics viewers, specialized tools. Original storage medium, evidence custody form, evidence containers, bitstream imaging tools, forensic workstations, securable evidence locker, cabinet, or safe. So, how to avoid damaging that evidence. With the IT manager, fill out the evidence form, have him sign it, place the evidence in a secure container, carry it to the lab, complete the custody form, secure it back, take it back where it's supposed to go. Bitstream is a bit-by-bit copy of the original medium, exact copy of the original disk, which means if you have a 2 terabyte drive, it will not fit on a 250 gig drive. So you need to make it not the exact model number and serial number. You can't do it with serial number anyways, but you at least need to have a space or size that's comparable to what you're going to do these backup for. So the image is what you're creating, and you work with images in these labs, by the way. So your original image, your image disk, and your target disk. That's why they say 2 copies. Preserve that original evidence. If that original evidence is altered, all your copies are altered. Write blocking, everything like that is still important. Basically, with ProDiscover, you're going to start the capture image and choose a source drive. Here we go. We've got our source drive and our destination. And you can change these sizes, sectors, and add in additional information like what you're doing, setting a password to it, compressing it, making it smaller. There we go. Joe Friday, image number in chapter practice 01. So you're going to basically check deleted files, check file fragments, check completed files, see if anything's on the disk that may have been moved or purposefully removed. ProDiscover processes is very similar, but very different in the same aspect. See how you've got your project on the left-hand side. ProDiscover has a pretty good entry-level search function that helps you figure out how to basically figure out what you need and exporting data and generating a report. They do generate a report, and if you choose to use the report, I don't recommend it, okay, because you'll find out soon. When the report is generated, it's generated as an HTML file. The HTML file links but doesn't show it, okay? So you're going to show me an HTML file or copy and paste the HTML file that I can't access the actual findings. So I care more about the findings more than the report. The report's handy, but the actual report links to those files. And if I can't see all those files, I can't give you credit for your lab. Of course, screenshots will show everything. If you can show me in this screenshot what you found, what you obtained for evidence, then you're doing just fine. But if you send me that report, I can't see anything that's attached to that report. Put it in another folder and test it for yourself, or zip it all up and send it to me. All right. Improving your performance. Did you expect the case? Did you expect for your critique, basically? How can you improve performance? What can you expect? Did you develop it in ways that you expected? Was it not as you expected? What was the documentation? Was it thorough? And what feedback has been received from the requesting source? So we don't have a requesting source in this. Your feedback will come from your peers. Did you discover any new problems? What new techniques can you learn using more research? Basically, we're here to systematically accumulate and analyze digital information used in civil and criminal and administrative cases. You're going to need specialized workstations and software. Public sector, private sector differ. The public sector typically requires search warrants before seizing digital evidence. And the systematic approach always uses a systematic approach. Plan a case before undertaking it and gathering and figuring out what those requirements are. Criminal cases and corporate policies can go to court. So if you start off in the right foot, your corporate policy case can transition to criminal policy case or criminal cases without any need for duplications, or maybe if you take a sloppy approach to corporate, your criminal won't have a leg to stand on because you've already altered all that data. You've already screwed it all over. The plan for contingencies for any problems you might encounter is a good plan there, but you're not going to know it all in the beginning. That's where that network of professionals comes in handy. That chain of evidence or that chain of custody is important as well. Internet abuse, investigations, server log data, client privilege, bitstream copies, journals, notes on what you did, and critique your own work or have your peers critique your work. So, quick review, Chapter 1, ProDiscover, lecture, forum, the assignment, hands-on 1, hands-on 2, the review, and quiz. And I'll see you guys next week.